I got it to do origami. I mean, in a way. But now we have this text-based adventure that I'm making. Oh, let's see what it's like to be closeted in the late 40s in Brooklyn. We'll see if it works.
Closets all the way down. You bring out what's within you. It's Brooklyn, 1948, and you live in a badass time. Your school's brownies exploded from ration little postage stamps to post-war chocolate pillows of abundance. You have favorite cartoon characters, and your friends have access to pictures of boobs. Good for them. But you have felt removed from the lives of your friends, and you have cultivated more and more moments by yourself. You've grown a fondness for long, contemplative walks, turning onto Flatbush. The sun is still high, but there aren't many people on the street. You imagine everyone has rushed home to catch the second half of the ball game or the radio version of Lights Out. As you walk by a brownstone building, an old man shouts from a third-story window, "The end is nigh." And then he closes the window and a curtain. You've always had this weird ability to go off in a kind of inner world of your own, so you've gotten used to ignoring him. You walk to Prospect Park. As you approach the park, the street seems to empty. There are many paths into the park, but when you try any one of them, the way is blocked. It seems odd, but not entirely out of the ordinary for this particular place at this particular time. It is eerily quiet and seems to be getting darker. Perhaps you should get back out on the street. As you turn around, the man with the dog is back in front of you and blocking your path back. At that moment, you begin to smell a strange aroma. You examine aroma. There is a scent you can't identify. It's like incense, only stronger. It's making your heart race. You shout, "Patchouli gives me a heart attack." And I don't even know what the word means. As soon as you say this, you see a flash of white and hear an awful clang like a bell. Then you feel the side of your neck and realize you have been bitten. It all happens so fast you are unsure of how to process it. But before you know it, you are on your back with an incredible weight pressing down on your chest. Something is staring directly into your eyes, and its breath is warm and smells rancid. The next thing you know, you are being dragged, your face rubbing the dirt. You say, "Count Grave, this is you." I'm gonna tree and clench your fist at the sky. Your mouth does not respond, but something inside of you knows your words have been heard. Then everything goes dark. When you come to your somewhere unfamiliar, like some sort of cell or dungeon, you're sitting in a cage. In one corner is a pile of bones, and the floor is littered with hay, which you think may also be hiding rat holes. Through a tiny window, you can see the stars and part of a moon. It appears to be night. It also looks like the sun may be beginning to rise. Yo, this better be an urgent care facility. No response. The bars of your cage are too close for you to squeeze through. You could break them, but you are not yet strong enough.
Nope.
You say, I have the rage of a closeted queen. I say, underneath my conscious thought, I can move mountains. You try and pry the bars open. You can't break the bars yet. You pry the bars open. You are not yet strong enough. You pry the bars open, hunting. You are not yet strong enough. The sunrise begins to brighten your view of the small window. You start to feel hungry and wonder what the man is going to do with you. The sun keeps rising. A short while later, your captor makes his way downstairs with a tray of food, which he sets next to the cage. You have a little difficulty breathing as the tray comes close to the cage because the smell is so strong and makes your stomach grumble. You say, "Oh, woman, sorry, I didn't mean to be a chauvinist." He doesn't seem to understand. You can barely breathe. The man is clearly a monster. He looks as though his skin has been pulled tight over his skull. All of his features look drawn, and his nose is a bulbous mass of scarred tissue. But his teeth are huge, and the ones in the front jut out, making him look like a rodent. You say, are we in some Nazi propaganda piece? Sweetie, just because you're Jewish doesn't mean you have to fulfill awful stereotypes. He snickers like some animal, and his yellowed eyes go blank. You can see the hairs rise on his arms, as if he is an angry dog or something. He walks out of the room. You say, well, it was nice building rapport with you. If you have any magazines, that'd be great. You look around and take inventory of what might be useful. In the other corner are a few small tools for sharpening and mending silverware. The bed in the corner is mostly rotten, and a chair leans against a wall with a book sitting on the seat. You eat the breakfast your captor has brought. It looks terrible. but tastes delicious. The sun keeps rising. There's a lot of noise outside. It sounds like a party. You see if you can look outside the window. The window is too high, though you think you can break the glass if you jump enough. You try and break the window with a silverware tool. As you work at the glass with the silverware tool, it slowly begins to shatter and fall away. A piece flies out the window. The glass shatters. A chunk of glass goes flying out the window and falls down somewhere below. You begin to hear a commotion inside the house. After a while, the noise of the party is gone. Then it returns in an uproar.
Hmm.
You say, I thought I was in a basement. Your door opens and two monsters carrying torches march inside. One grabs your ankle and the other takes a hold of your neck, the collar digging into your skin and causing pain. You can breathe, but only through short, shallow breaths. They drag you out. As the two monsters carry you out of the building, you notice more and more people are starting to gather. You feel like something horrible is about to happen. You see a large group of monsters walking in a group toward the town square. You ask, hey, fellow Brooklynites, little help here? Remember that chick that got stabbed by her ex and all of those bystanders did nothing? Do you want to be like those Manhattan guys? Come on, you gonna stand for this? Nobody responds, but many monsters point to where you are being led. You hear them talking. Some are laughing at the irony. Others sound outrage, saying that this is not how they want to be treated as monsters. But they don't do anything about it. You are taken to the town square and thrown into a wooden cage and told not to escape. A hooded monster with long claws enters the cage. I am Vladarak, the Grand Master, he says. Yell, I'm Endorphin, I'm that queen, enchanted. Your words have no effect. Vladarak points a claw at you and asks you, why should we let you live? Do you have the courage to live like a monster? You yell, and how? But you can't. He snarls and says, so what makes you special? You ask, well, I like looking like one thing and I have the roll down really well. But when no one is looking on this other thing that most people pretend don't exist. And it's a bit of a mindfuck to live in those two worlds simultaneously. Does that track and resonate as similar to the monstering experience to you all? His eyes narrow. You think you're special? Everyone thinks they're special. You say we are special, but we are also specks of dust on the ass of the universe. Special specks. He stares at you, then shrugs. There's been a change. We're monsters, not freaks. So let's talk about that. You shout, sure, ask away. The crowd grows silent. You look over at your family and the other townspeople, and everyone is watching. A hush falls over the crowd as Bladderak stands tall and says, you think I'm stupid and crazy, and I know who you are. You've been telling everyone I'm crazy. But I can prove that you're lying to all of us. To all of us.
Sorry. I had a
You say, Oh, honey, I don't have the time going around everywhere and seeding stories to manufacture people's perceptions. Who does that anyway? Sickies. I'm not talking about crazy. There's no crazy. There's just 1,000 faces of traumatic response. The Senate will be talking about that in a few decades. If you and I had beef, I'd not be telling everyone you're crazy. I'd just mention how someone did this fucked up shit because likely their parents are pieces of work. But I wouldn't mention your name, not if anyone didn't know you, because that's a lame ass thing to do. Bladderag ignores you. We're all monsters here, right? Who are you? What do you want? What's the difference between you and the rest of us? Why do you always look so uncomfortable when people come over to visit? Why don't you go to the bar anymore? Why do you have to get up so early for work? You say, I'm just looking to get my dick wet. The monsters laugh. It's clear they are in no mood for your antics. You glance back at your family. They look scared. He looks at you and says, no, that's not you. You ask, who made you an expert about me? He looks over at your parents and says, we have proof you're lying. He points his claw at your mother and says, you be her judge too. The monsters roar their approval of the Grand Master's words. Your mother screams as Vladarag drags her off into the woods. The other monsters grab you and hold you tight so you can't run. You ask, then wouldn't you have started this conversation with the evidence? Sounds very inefficient if you ask me. If you're gonna stand in your truth, then why all this page and tray? After a while, Vladarag comes back to the cage and grabs the rope you were tied with. The other monsters hold you down and start beating you with clubs until you can hardly stand. You lose consciousness. You awaken, tied to a table, with your mother's head next to yours. Her skin has been peeled off and her teeth have been ripped out. Your family watches in horror as you cry in pain. You have two options. Become the monster you know you are, or die as the liar that you are. You say still haven't heard this evidence. I wait with bated breath. The crowd murmurs and shifts their feet. Vladarag smiles at your reaction and continues. He holds up a picture of you dressed in drag. See? There's your truth right there. You've been dressing in women's clothes and trying to make us think you're not really a monster. Well, we won't put up with this. This ends now. We're not going to let you get away with it. Do you know what the penalty for lying to a monster is? You say, and your robes aren't dresses too? That makes sense to me. The other monsters murmur and laugh as Vladarak looks out at the crowd of monsters and says, "That's right, and this is just the beginning." He grabs the top of your dress and rips it from your neck down to your waist. "I'll be taking this to remind you." You say, I asked a question. Why does your queenie ass get to wear robes? And you still haven't heard about this evidence you speak of. Is there a law or something? You know, rule of law and dockets and shit. Vladarak nods and says, "But it ends now. No more of this." You say, "Oh, you have a hot date tonight? Let me guess. You're gonna get fucked by one of the guys you dragged my mom and killed her. You know, you don't have to use my mom's blood. You can get lube at the store." Vladarak shakes his head and sighs. This is the new reality. You know, all you have to do is stop lying, and all this will end. You can feel the anger rising inside you. You say, "You lost me at the notion of a singular reality." His eyes narrow. It is time to prove our new world is real. To show it isn't all just make-believe. To show we're real. The monsters roar their approval of the Grand Master's words. Your mother screams as Vladarak drags her off into the woods. The other monsters grab you and hold you tight so you can't run. You say real worlds don't have to prove themselves. He turns back to the crowd and shouts, "Who will take the first step? Who will become a monster now? I will." You say, "Oh, wait, was that my mom? Wait, guys, don't you remember that my mom was dead? Then how is she screaming again?" This is very basic reasoning, people. You're brave, John. You really are. John steps up and removes his clothes, revealing himself to be a very hairy, muscular man.
Let's see where this goes, because I haven't much idea what John is.
He climbs up on the cage and starts to masturbate.
What?
Soon the other monsters join him. The air fills with an odor that you can't place. John climbs is to an incredible orgasm that sends sperm splashing up onto the cage, some of it even landing on you. Then it hits you there's more than one monster here. Now, all the others who've been watching this show are all getting excited too. You've heard they've all got a little monster in them, but you've never seen any evidence before now. You say, well, my work is done. I'm off to have a nightcap and return to bed. Glad I've helped you all gestalt this, but you know things. But they're still going now. It seems like they've started to get more creative. The monsters are making a sort of daisy chain. One man's mouth goes to the next one's cock, then to the next, and on and on. You bid goodnight and return home. You turn to walk away, but a man you've never met before stops you, grabs your arm, and starts leading you through the crowd towards the middle of the village square. You wrench his arm. You just left there, thank you very much, and slap him in the face. Continue on home. You stop and take a step back. The man smiles and says, I know I shouldn't have said that, but you just seem like such a nice guy. You know, I thought you could use a hand. You say, I've got way more than I know what to do with. Have a nice day. He stares at you for a minute, then nods and says, sure. He looks back towards the town square, where the monster orgy is now in full swing. If you're worried about what they're doing, won't be. You'll see. I know you will. They're not going to let anything happen to you. And besides, they're not all that bad, really. I know it's a cliche, but most people think monsters are so weird, you know? You shout, tell me about it. One moment they have your mom's severed head on your lap, and the next they want you to break the ice at their orgy. They could use a little emotional intelligence. Anyway, see ya. The man smiles and says, well, I hope you don't mind, but if I had to guess, you don't have any problem with these monsters or with being one, right? In fact, I bet you like it. You say it's a living. The man looks over at the monsters, who are now having a good time with each other. He glances back at you, then nods and says, well, then, if you're not bothered by them, why are you still here? He points towards the edge of the woods and says, look, if you're worried about what they're doing, don't be. You'll see. I know you will. They're not going to let anything happen to you. And besides, they're not all that bad, really. You shout, Queen, leave me be. At some pumpkin turning into to do. Night. The man looks at you quizzically, then laughs and says, yeah, well, good night. As you walk away, he calls out after you, come back again soon. We won't bite. You mumble, messy faggots, under your breath and arrive home. When you get back to the house, your family is sitting around the table, drinking tea. Good evening, brother, they say.
Don't he feel so well?
You mumble, You'll be taking dinner upstairs. Don't feel so well. You go upstairs to bed. After you fall asleep, you begin to dream. In the dream, you are dancing in a circle with your friends from school. You are all wearing pink flower glaze and singing songs that sound like the ones your parents used to sing when you were all kids. In your dream, you notice the walls are painted bright blue and your shoes are filled with glitter. In your dream, everyone else seems to be in love and you feel as though you are part of something big.
Okay. That was closer to the way down. Went a totally different direction than I expected. It's easy to be bitchy when you have the protective bubble of fake pieces around you. Alright.